I've been in Vegas 2 weeks. Let's catch you up on what's been going on.
So, it's been a while since I checked my mail. Now, I had a pretty good reason for not checking it regularly, which is that I wasn't really getting much. But today, got some mail. I don't even know what to do with all this. I think I'm leaving in like 6 or 7 days, so maybe I'll do like a live stream or something.
Due to an extremely dumb error on my part, I managed to lose the footage from the mail time that I had planned. Huge apology to the guys who sent me stuff that have come in over the last few weeks. I did actually record myself opening it, and I was extremely excited to share it with you guys, and I feel so bad that I lost the footage. I am gonna try to, basically give you guys a better shout out when I get home from Vegas, but I can't recover the footage, and again, I'm really sorry. So just know, everybody else, that I got some pretty awesome mail, and I was pretty stoked to share it with you all. And I still, of course, have all of it, so I will, remake the video. But I don't have it, and it won't be for a while that I remake it because I won't be home from Vegas. So sorry again. You guys are awesome for sending stuff. I'll see you soon. Come on. You will not believe who I just ran into coming into the Rio. So some of you who were following my videos last year at the WSOP know that I played the main. I busted on day 2 with ace 8, I believe, making flop 2 pair against Andrei Zaichenko, who turned a straight. All the money went in on the turn. I didn't get there. That was my main. So I'm walking up to the elevator. The elevator's taking forever to come. Who walks up but Andrei Zaichenko? And he's staying on the same floor as me. Not sure if that's bad luck or just getting the run bat out of the way, but it's something. It's something. Not so fun fact about these TVs in the Rio. It seems like they just turn themselves on. And I'm not really sure why. Rooms at the Rio certainly aren't the best in the world, but I really don't mind them, except for they're pretty dark. Although, wait a minute. This can't be right.
No way. How did we get a strip view? I'm calling it. It's gonna be a great summer. Alright, so I ended up playing a lot of cash games at the Rio before even firing my first tournament, and played a few notable hands. One thing to note that's interesting about the Rio 2-3 is that the buy-in cap is 200 to 1,000, so pretty deep for a $3 blind game, although you're not really forced to come in deep. In the first hand there's 2 limps, the button makes it 20. I'm in the small blind with ace queen offsuit and choose to just call, which I actually don't really like, kind of prefer a 3-bet, but I did just call. The second limper ends up coming along as well, and we go to a flop of ace 6-3 rainbow. Checks around to the pre-flop aggressor, and he c-bets. I call, and we go heads up to a turn that's an offsuit king. I check, and he decides to check it back. The river is another 6, and at this point, I think he has some kind of showdownable hand. I go for a bet of 85, and he tanks for about 2 to 3 minutes, and eventually just calls. I turn over my hand, expecting it to be good 100% of the time, and he shows queen 6 offsuit. So not a great start, kind of a weird hand right off the bat, and he's going to take that one down. In this next hand, there are 2 limps. I complete in the small blind with ace 5 hearts, and the big blind checks, so we go 4 ways to a flop. Flop is well above average for this hand. It's 4-4 deuce with 2 hearts, so we flop a gut shot to the straight flush wheel, and I decide to lead out for 10. Definitely could go for a check raise here, but I don't expect there to be a lot of 4x, so I just kind of go for it and try to take it down or build a pot for when I hit. Big blind's only caller, and we go heads up to the turn, which is the 7 of diamonds. On the turn, I decide to check, and he bets 10. Initially, I was planning to check raise, but the size honestly just kind of confused me. So I decided to just call, and we go heads up to a river. The river brings in my flush. It's a 6 of hearts, and I lead for 100, thinking that he can have some worse flushes, and he's probably not going to fold trips. So I bet 100, and he jams for 225. Super weird spot. I created it kind of by sizing so big myself on the river by betting 100. Definitely think that if I bet smaller and he jams, it's probably a fold. If I bet smaller and he raises smaller, you could probably call because he would, play worse flushes this way. Ultimately, I decide on a side call, just hoping that he has enough of worse flush hands in his range that this is okay. I kind of created a weird price for myself. Ultimately, I'm not convinced that's right though, and he does turn over 4 deuce offsuit for a boat. In this hand, another kind of interesting spot. There's a limp. I'm in middle position with red pocket deuces, and I choose to overlimp. The hijack makes it 10, the cutoff calls, and the small blind now makes it 25, which is kind of a weird raise size for a 3-bet when there's already multiple limps and 2 people in there for 10. The big blind ends up cold calling. Early position folds. I decide I'm getting the right price. We're pretty deep here, so I call as well. Hijack and cutoff both call, so there's 125-ish going into the pot, and 5 of us seeing the flop. The flop is king 5 deuce rainbow, and it checks to me. Don't really see much merit in checking here. It's going to be hard to get a lot of money in the pot without starting to bet now. So I just put out a smallish bet of 50. Folds back around to the small blind, who was the pre-flop 3-better, and she check raises to 125. Now, immediately my thoughts are she would definitely play kings this way. If she 3-bets that small pre, she might play ace king or aces this way some percentage of the time, although again, the small sizing pre is very weird. I've seen her do this a couple times though, so it could just be her standardish kind of 3-bet zero mat type sizing. I decide to just call when it folds to me, and we go heads up to a turn. The turn is now the ace of hearts, which is the second heart on board. She now bets 125 pretty quickly in green chips, and I don't see much choice here other than a call. Folding seems out of the question, but raising at this point might only isolate us against sets. And even though there are some combos of ace-king, I feel it's much more likely she takes this line with kings than with ace-king or aces. So I just call. The river is the six of spades, and she bets about 175. I don't know the exact sizing because she kind of piles up about 100 in green and puts it on top of almost 100 in red, something like that. So she pushes that forward, and her sizing is so weird. I kind of don't know if she'd be betting so quickly with, a set, but at the same time, I couldn't really see myself getting called by a lot of worse hands because, again, ace-king is the only one that I think calls that I beat, and she just doesn't take this line all the time with ace-king, whereas she does all the time with kings. Now, some people might call me crazy here for just calling, but that's what I did, and she actually showed up with ace-10, which I was very confused about. I don't really understand her line pre-flop. On the flop, I get it. She gets a lot of credit, and then on the turn she improves, so it's kind of hard not to bet. But with me calling on flop and turn, it seems like it's a little bit thin for her to go for value with this just top pair. But I get to take this one down and continue on in the session. In this hand, I open king 10 of diamonds in early position to 20 over a limp. There are 3 calls, 2 of them are in position, and the flop comes jack, 10, 7, two-tone. I see bet 50, and 2 in position callers are in, middle position and button. We go 3 ways to a turn, which is a total brick. At this point, it's really hard to put anyone on better than one pair, and I feel like I can put any one pair hand in a very tough spot by shoving. The middle position player has 250 behind, and the button has 300 behind, so I just shove. It's 300 effective, and somehow they both call. So this is not good. Obviously, I need some help. Even with my flush draw and my pair, I'm not in amazing shape. The river is an ace. Before I can even turn my hand over, middle position shows jack 10, and the button shows king queen. So a little bit of an ambitious overcall there, I think, from her position. Jack 10 obviously makes sense if he just calls flop, but kudos to him for playing it kind of tricky. I think in the long run he's going to do better by raising, but he certainly trapped me here. In this hand, middle position opens to 15. The cutoff calls. I'm in the big blind with 8-6 of diamonds, and I choose to call as well. The flop comes 10, 9, 5 with 2 diamonds. The pre-flop raiser C bets 20, gets a call, and I choose to check raise to 85. Figure I kind of want to maximize fold equity here, potentially be able to barrel off, and if I do make my hand, the pot's going to be a lot bigger. Middle position ends up calling, and the cutoff folds, so we go heads up to a turn now. I do not hit my draw. The turn is a 4 of hearts. I make it 145, continuing to represent 2 pair and sets, and of course some combo draws like I have, and he makes the call once again. Kind of concerning, may or may not have to give up on the river, sort of depends on what comes. But the river comes a 3 of diamonds, which seems to leave me with a pretty easy decision here. I shove for 375 effective into a more than $500 pot at this point. He tanks for about 3 minutes, like definitely 2.5 or 3 minutes, and eventually kind of side calls with 10-7 of diamonds. So beat here, and certainly after you tanked so long I didn't expect to be beat. It's kind of unfortunate because if he's thinking that long with this flush, it seems like we might not really get called by worse when we jam here, but it seems like we still sort of have to. It may mean that with some of our worst combo draws, we should be, barreling and then blasting rivers when we don't get there, but check calling perhaps when we get there, or it seems impossible to check fold. But he's going to take that one down, and we are knocked down a peg again. So at this point, I am severely stuck in the game, certainly stuck a lot for a 2-3 game, and I look definitely on tilt a little bit from that last hand. So in this hand, there are 2 limps. I'm in the hijack with pocket 10s, and I bump it up to 20. There's a call, and then the small blind makes it 50. This is the same player from the previous hand, and he's certainly not overly aggressive pre-flop. I don't think he ever has bluffs at this size. He could have something like ace king, ace queen. but he could also have, jacks plus very easily. I call and the button calls as well, so we go 3 ways to a flop, which is ace, 3, 3, rainbow. I don't think I played this hand particularly well. When the small blind checks to me, I actually sort of prefer betting to potentially bet multiple streets and potentially get him off of something like kings through jacks, but ultimately I just check and the button checks behind. We go 3 ways to a turn now, which is an 8 of hearts, which is the second heart on board. The small blind bets 45, which I found to be sort of weird and inconsistent with his line pre. I felt like his size was sort of confusing, but at the time, again, I was just sort of a little bit flustered by what was going on. It's definitely a little bit tilted, and I made the call. I don't even know what I like as the best line here. Again, I prefer to just bet the flop, but it ends up being a call, and the button ends up folding behind. The river is gin. It's a 10 of hearts, which is the third heart on board, and it improves my hand to a boat. Small blind bets 90, and without really thinking too hard about it, I just shove. I was thinking that if he does somehow have ace king here, he's probably going to struggle to let it go even to this huge size. He's also going to have a few flushes, particularly given that the ace of hearts is not on the board. He can have ace king and ace queen of hearts potentially. But that being said, I do wish I'd thought the spot through a little bit longer before shoving. Maybe I still would have done it, but at the end of the day, it seems a little bit hard for him to call off with those kind of technically 2 pair type holdings if he doesn't have a flush now. So it's a little bit results oriented because I get snapped off by pocket aces, and I have one of the worst losses I've had at a $3 blind game in quite a while. But that's how it goes sometimes. Not the best welcome to the Vegas 2-3 games at the Rio, but we're going to get back on the horse, get back to it, and try and make it up in some tournaments. Ended up booking minus 1,000 on that session, but there's plenty more poker to be had. The summer is young.